Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Welcome to our speaker series from the biology department at South Texas College. Today, we have Peggy Ramon. She is a registered and licensed dietitian with a master's degree in science and human sciences from Texas A&M. She holds a bachelor's degree in family and consumer sciences and a concentration in nutrition from Texas State University. Throughout her experience, she trained with highly specialized physicians and dietitians in the areas of diabetes, kidney disease, and weight management. Growing up in a traditional Latino family, Peggy realized how Mexican food and customs can be a special part of many people's lives, especially living in South Texas. So after years of study, working with people of various backgrounds, eating habits, illnesses, and different injuries, she decided to teach others how nutrition should be a priority. And that is why we have her here today to talk to us about what to look out for when making the key decisions in choosing what to eat. Thank you so much for joining us. And now I leave you with Ms. Ramon-Rosales.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. So, welcome. Nice to meet everybody. Nice to see everybody logging in. My name is Peggy Ramon-Rosales. So I'm a registered and licensed dietitian. I have a private practice here in McAllen, Texas. It's called Pure Nutrition Consulting. So my presentation will be this overall nutrition and wellness, talking about what food is composed of, and of course what debunking fad diets, overall just health and nutrition. So what is nutrition? So food is essential. It provides vital nutrients for survival. It helps the body function and stay healthy. Food is comprised of macronutrients, which includes protein, carbohydrates, fats, and not only offer calories to fuel the body and gives energy, but plays a certain role in maintaining our health. Food also supplies micronutrients, which are the vitamins and minerals that do not provide calories, but they do serve a variety of critical functions to ensure that our body functions properly. So the vital nutrients, we've all heard of our macronutrients, otherwise known as macros. These are our main food sources, which are derived from carbohydrates, proteins, and fats, and as well as our micronutrients. So the micronutrients are vitamins and minerals. And of course, a vital nutrient is your water. So food, when it comes to macronutrients, this is what provides the energy. Micronutrients do not provide, for instance, calories, but they also provide some energy, of course, depending on what vitamin and mineral it is. So metabolism. So it's a process by which your body will convert what you eat and drink into energy. During this complex process, calories in food and beverages are combined with oxygen to release the energy your body needs to function. So energy. So micronutrients provide the calories, which of course give us the energy. Because it is needed in our body in large amounts, these are called the macronutrients. So going to specifics, what is carbohydrate? So this provides the energy and the fuel the body needs, the same way that gasoline fuels a car. So typically it is about 4 calories per gram. Dependent on the serving. So every carbohydrate, every type of food will be a different serving that will equal to your, for instance, 1 carb serving is typically about 15 grams. So for instance, if somebody has diabetes or trying to watch their blood sugar levels, we do need to keep each serving to about 15 grams. So normally, for instance, rice will be about 1/3 cup cooked. Beans are about 1/2 cup. Fruit is a carbohydrate, right? So we think about corn, beans, pastas, fruits, rice, tortillas, all the good stuff in the carbohydrates, right? Now, these are not bad per se. We have to just make sure, let's say we're trying to watch our waistline or we're trying to be careful with our blood sugar. Carbohydrates are essential as we're discussing. These are essential nutrients. We do need carbohydrates. We need every single food group. We need every single macronutrient. And of course, our micronutrients. So the carbohydrates that's the main food source of energy, fuel source of energy. So we want to make sure just to balance these out if we're going to incorporate them in. Every meal should incorporate all the food groups. Now, how the body uses them. So all carbs are essentially broken down into glucose, which is the main energy source for the body. This is in charge of glycolysis. This is the process called glycolysis. Now, so there are certain types of carbohydrates. There's simple carbohydrates, and then there's more complex ones. So the simple are pretty much, they're easy for your body to break down for energy or glucose because they have only 1 or 2 sugar molecules. Now, a complex carbohydrate, and there are long strands of sugar molecules, which are the fiber. They're all strung together, therefore increases the amount of time needed to break down the food. So typically, athletes, most of the time, you're going to see them incorporate simple sugar, simple carbohydrates to get the energy before like a run, right? Typically, athletes metabolize simple carbohydrates very quickly, and their body uses them quicker. When it comes to at rest, to focus on complex carbohydrates, because with the fiber is just so essential for us. Fiber helps, of course, go to the restroom, help decrease cholesterol levels, help prevent heart disease, helps prevent colon cancer, great benefits. So fiber is definitely key. Some food sources that are derived from simple carbohydrates, honey, table sugar, white flours like white rice, white pasta, very simple in sugar. And for complex carbohydrates are going to be more of your whole grains. So for instance, your whole wheat bread, we think about brown rice, beans have great fiber as well. Most fruits do have great fiber. Typically, if you're able to eat the peel. So if you can eat the peel of the fruit, that fruit is more complex. It takes a lot longer for our body to break it down because the peel has all the fiber. Of course, all fruits have tons of good variety of nutrients, right? Different vitamins, minerals. So you want to make sure to focus on a variety of different colors of the rainbow every single meal. Even though, berries and apples will have more fiber, we do need some simple carbs as well. So just all about the balance of a meal. Of course, vegetables are great, have great complex fiber as well. So, and then that's focusing on different types of vegetables, all different types. So fiber is a type of carbohydrate that cannot be broken down by our GI tract. So you just poop it out, right? So complex carbs normally contain fiber unless they have been processed. So normally, for instance, whenever we're trying to buy a whole wheat bread or bread, I get asked the question, well, what type of bread? There's so many out there. So a little trick, it should always say your label of the bread should always say 100% whole grain or whole wheat. Whenever it just says wheat bread, right, or honey wheat, the grain is not intact anymore. So it's not a whole grain. So whole grains will have the fiber, which again help go to the restroom, help protect the heart, help bring down the cholesterol, and also prevent the blood sugars from spiking. So if you know diabetes, or you have diabetes, or trying to watch, we should really stick with a lot of fibrous foods with every single meal. Proteins. So protein provides the structure to muscle and bones, repairs tissues when damaged, and helps immune cells fight inflammation and infection. Pretty much the amino acids are building blocks of protein, right? Which are needed for growth, development, and repair and maintenance. So we know a lot of times we do know these sources, right? The proteins, we think about our beef, our pork, our chicken, our fish, our seafood, right? Soybeans and other legumes. Beans are a great source of protein. They do have some carbohydrate, but they're definitely a good source of protein. How does the body use these proteins? Amino acids are the building blocks of the protein. There are two types of amino acids that are non-essential and essential. So non-essential amino acids are not required to be consumed with the diet, as your body can actually make these. Essential amino acids are required through the diet. Essential amino acids can either be used on their own, or in some cases they're transformed into a non-essential amino acid. Fats. So fats provide the structure to cells and cushions membranes to help prevent the damages of our cells. So oils and fats are essential for help absorb the fat-soluble vitamins, vitamin A, a nutrient so important for our eyesight and our lungs. So fats are important as well. They typically have, this idea, people have this idea of them not being as good for us, because of course they are a little bit more calorie dense, but they are very, very essential and very needed. So these fats are found in oils, coconut, nuts, milk, cheese. Of course, your proteins will have a little bit of fat as well. So fat breaking down into the fatty acids and glycerol. So different types of fats. So there's some good ones, and then there's some not so healthy ones, right? We think about the trans fats not being so healthy for us. So we want to be really careful. Trans fats are typically found in foods that are very processed, that are in packaged foods, like in chips, cookies, typically the ones that have a very high shelf life, right? Saturated fats are typically like the animal fat, right, in our animals, and of course added as well, and in butters, bacon, cream cheese. We have to be really careful with those type of fats. Those can be directly related to increase of cholesterol levels. Unsaturated fat. These are the ones that are going to be the best for us. The monounsaturated and the polyunsaturated are the two main ones. And we'll get into more in depth onto those and food label reading. Typically, those two are not necessary to add onto the facts label, and we'll get into detail of the facts label and reading them. So I'll give you some insight on that as well. So let's take a look. So micronutrients, so support overall health and play an important role in cell metabolism and neurological functions. Very, very important for us. We think about calcium and magnesium helping with muscles and blood vessels, helping them relax, prevent cramps and high blood pressure. Vitamin A with your eyesight, vitamin C with wound healing and body's ability to fight off germs. Iron helping with blood transport, oxygen through the body and prevents anemia. You name it, right? Tons of good, important role of these nutrients. So your diet includes a variety of these foods, including whole grains, fresh fruits and vegetables, dairy products, nuts and seeds, eggs, and meats. You probably get enough vitamins and minerals that your body does need. So whenever you do need a supplement, it's only when you're really severely lacking a certain food. Let's say you don't like your fruits and vegetables, and you may want to supplement with like a multivitamin, right? Because you could be lacking something. So we'll talk briefly about these fad diets that we've all kind of heard about. So we think about a low fat diet. So fats do have the most calories per gram. Now, again, we kind of heard a little bit about how important fats are of helping absorb everything, that your fat soluble vitamins, right? So fats are definitely necessary. Now, whenever we're trying, let's say we want to try to focus on weight loss, we should have a good healthy fat diet. Talk a little briefly about the good fats and the not so good fats. So the good fats are, again, the nuts, the seeds, peanut butter, avocado, oils. Those are going to be the most healthiest fats to incorporate in. Now, should we watch out with the nut intake? Yes. Should we have just a little bit of nuts? Not necessarily. Yes. Should we omit them? So whenever somebody will present a low fat diet to me as a way of helping them lose weight, I try to, swerve around and kind of explain to them the reason for healthy fats. And fats definitely increase the sense of satiety, the sense of fullness. So they definitely help you stay more fuller, give you good energy as well, and will essentially help prevent any cravings later. So I think we've all heard about the keto diet, the high fat, adequate protein, low carb, right? It's typically going to be just vegetables with people that are on this keto diet, very little fruit. Maybe they'll have maybe some berries because those are the highest fiber fruit, and they have very little sugar. Typically no added sugars at all. Now, high fat. There's several ways to do this keto diet that people do, and I feel like whenever it's for instance the abundance amount of butter, bacon, high fat proteins, right? Like a lot of red meat. We think about that having a lot of saturated fat. We kind of heard a little earlier the issue with saturated fat being high in cholesterol. We shouldn't do so much high fat food. So I have seen patients and young patients come in after the keto diet and with high cholesterol. So, we want to protect our heart. The number one killer in America for us women is heart disease, heart attacks, right? Strokes. We want to be very, very careful with these certain type of diets. Especially we have history of heart issues like high blood pressure, high cholesterol already. Should we go into a keto diet? No. So we'll focus on a very good balanced diet, which I'm going to get into much detail of what we should be doing. So I think we've all heard also of the intermittent fasting. This also known as a energy restriction under this certain time, right? We have whether it's like only 8 hours of eating. So I have patients that will come in, okay, I only eat from 12 to 8. Or 11 to 7, whatever their timing is, right? And to be quite honest, if your body is telling you you're hungry, let's say you wake up and you're hungry, good metabolism, you have a great appetite, which is important, right? Because no appetite is worrisome. So you have a good appetite. Should we totally dismiss these hunger cues? Should we just say, no, I'm not going to eat because I'm on this certain diet? We're not listening to our body. So I feel like that's a way of course, not listening to our body, and that you're not building any good habits doing that. So are you never going to have breakfast again? You're probably going to have breakfast again. Should we do something that we're going to be a little yo-yo back and forth with? No, I think we should really focus on course, eating properly, eating when in response to hunger, not necessarily in response to, I have this time to eat only. Let's say 12 to 8, you try to cram all your 3 meals and then you're not even hungry for them. Then of course that could lead to overeating. And sometimes I do see patients do this and they don't lose weight because they're on all these rules, right? So I feel like that could lead to unhealthy habits. So what should we do? What should we do? What should we follow, right? There has been, back in the day, there was my pyramid method, where we have our macronutrients, all our nutrients in these little categories, right? And certain amounts to eat of them. Well, now it's progressed to my plate. So we should focus on a balanced method. We should incorporate all the food groups into every single meal to help you stay satisfied. And let's say we can't have our fruit with every meal because, it's just, maybe you're not hungry for it after you have your grain, your veggie, and your protein, or your dairy. You can always move it to a snack option. That's okay to kind of move things around a little bit. So we should adequately have about 2 to 3 servings of fruit a day. Same with the vegetable, about 2 or 3 cups of vegetables a day, and a variety of different colors of green and red and yellow, right? And of course, protein intake, we should have some protein with every single meal. And I'd say we have a little bit of dairy, maybe a little yogurt, maybe some cheese. That could be moved around a little bit for maybe a snack option. So balancing the calories, not necessarily having maybe like one large meal a day and then the other is very small. We think about the focus with weight loss, let's say, right, is making sure that every meal is very nice and balanced. Typically, we have a larger meal, blood sugar could increase, and then it could plummet quickly after, depending on what type of carbohydrates we're doing. So we're going to be really careful with the carbohydrates, choosing the more complex ones with tons of good fiber and veggies. But typically, we do miss out on, like, for instance, protein. I have a lot of patients that will come in, I do a quick little shake, and it's just like maybe fruit and milk or maybe some oatmeal in there. And most of the time, they're missing the protein. I hear a lot, it's because of my time. I don't have enough time to make a complete meal in the morning. So a quick idea with that, just add some Greek yogurt to your smoothie. That's pretty much all pure protein. If we do the plain Greek yogurt, not necessarily one that has a lot of added sugar in it, right? Which are the flavored yogurts, the flavored Greek yogurts or the regular yogurts, right? The Greek will have more protein. Or maybe like a big bowl of cereal. But I hear that quite a bit. I just have time for a big bowl of cereal. And then they're hungry an hour or 2 later because they forget the protein. So again, every single nutrient, every single food group is just so important to help you stay fuller. When patients do eat this way, I see much more success. So kind of give you a little insight. So 100 extra calories a day will typically be about 10 extra pounds a year. So 100 extra calories, that is really easy to add into our diets. Let's say you have this really good coffee that you love and you're adding some heavy cream to it. And it's a couple tablespoons, 2 or 3 tablespoons, there goes 100 calories easily. So can you take those out? Maybe replace with maybe some almond milk, some unsweet version, maybe just portion out a tablespoon versus a couple, or not even measuring. So easy just to pour, and there goes another 50 there, another 50 there, and there are several pounds a year that we could be decreasing instead of increasing. And I know it's hard. I totally get it. I know I love those good coffees too, but having the little substitute would be essential. Now, this is key. We're trying to make sure that we are eating not until we're typically full, but just till we're just satisfied. That could take a little while to understand, right? Because let's say all this time I've been doing it all wrong. I've been overeating this whole time. I feel so bloated. I feel kind of sluggish. Typically that would mean maybe we ate too much. Or I only eat 2 meals a day, Peggy, why am I not losing weight? So those 2 meals are probably really big. If you're not getting hungry in between, they're probably much more than what you need. So typically you should get hungry every few hours, about every 2 or 3 hours. So we should try to program our plan to be breakfast and then a snack, and then lunch and then a snack, and then dinner, and then a snack. So how long does it take for your brain, your tummy, to tell your brain, and for everything to kind of just work together and talk to each other? So it takes about 20 minutes. So that's a good amount of time. I have a lot of teachers that are my patients, and they say, Peggy, I only have 20 minutes to, or 15 minutes. By the time they sit down and warm their food up, they only have about 15 minutes to eat. And I'm still hungry, and I'll grab a cookie, or I'll grab this little dessert, or I have to have something sugary after I eat. I hear that a lot, because we're not giving our body a chance to communicate, right? We're not leaving the 20 minutes for them to communicate. So you want to be really careful when we eat. We should be eating in a calm, environment. We should eat very slowly. Every bite, we should chew about 20 times or so. Putting the fork down, drinking in between. Water is so essential. So we should have enough water intake as well. So, let's say we have these larger plates at home. I know that we all kind of do sometimes, and we want to fill them up. And we want to make sure that we are going to stay content, right? So downsizing on the plate is a good little method to help with weight loss. Let's say instead of serving yourself on a larger normal plate, we're going to use a little small plate, maybe even like a little salad plate, the ones that are smaller, opposed to double the size. The smaller plate, the more filled it will look. And of course, we're focusing on the balance of your meal. So it should look really colorful. It should have a variety of different food groups on there. Of course, if you notice a little plate method, almost half of it is your veggies. So we should really focus on the vegetables, palm size for protein, more or less half a cup or so, a cup, depending on the patient. Everybody requires different carbohydrates amounts, protein amounts, and then maybe a healthy fat on the side, right? Avocado on top or something. So we should really, that could be a little goal, maybe incorporating smaller plates and bowls so we can eat less, essentially. So we really want to focus on limiting the foods that are really high in salt, sugars, refined grains. We think about all the food in this picture, right? Very processed. The less processed, the better, honestly, right? The less saturated fat, the less trans fats that you're gonna incorporate into your diet. The less risk of heart disease, the less risk of your cholesterol increasing, and the less sluggish. The less you're gonna feel sluggish, right? We all want to have a good array of energy, and these foods, they equate to calories, and essentially that's energy, but you may feel the energy and you may plummet after. So I don't know if you all ever heard of like the little 3 o'clock slump in your day, and what can I get through that little 3 o'clock slump, Peggy? And typically with my patients that eat small, frequent meals, tons of fiber, complex carbohydrates, and balanced meals, they don't have that little slump. They have a good variety. They have good energy throughout the day. Typically, if you have good energy, you're gonna have less cravings. So you're not gonna have the need to have that little sugar pick me up. Right? You're not going to need so much caffeine. You're not going to need that coffee or something or caffeine or energy drink in the middle of the day to get you through your day, because you're fueling your body with good, wholesome foods versus very processed. So we want to eat more of the nutrient-dense foods, the foods that are going to be have more nutrients versus just empty calories, empty sugars, added sugars in the diet, right? You want to focus on good lean proteins, the complex carbohydrates, your veggies, your fruits. So the nutrient-dense foods, vegetables, fruits, whole grains, of course, seafood, your protein, right? Eggs, beans, peas are a great source of protein and fiber and carbs. Unsalted nuts and seeds, right? If you can do them unsalted, that would be better. The less extra added sodium, a little better. Low fat or fat-free milk products, and then lean meats and poultry. So you want to make sure that these are prepared without any added like fats, like not too much oil, or don't add sugar on these foods or extra salt. We do need sodium, we do need salt. So a little will go a long way. I'm going to get to details on how much sodium and how much salt. So we shouldn't do too much. So I'm going to get into detail of how to label read. So serving sizes, our eyes should automatically look towards the top, the serving size. What is a serving to give me these values? How much am I going to eat to get this certain amount of calories or this certain amount of total carbohydrates, right? So the eye should always look at the serving size. So this indicates the serving size and the number of servings per container. And it'll give you both typically. This is important, of course, to give you all the nutritional information based on that certain portion. So, and then our eyes should look at the calories. So these calories refer to one of the serving of the food. So for instance, if you eat 2 of the servings of the food, let's say this serving is 1/4 cup, and you eat 1 serving and you eat an extra 1/4, which is, let's say, a half a cup. You're going to double the calories. You should double all the values since you're eating double the servings. So this could be a little confusing because sometimes our eyes will just go on the calories, okay, and not necessarily the servings. How many servings is in this container? How many servings are in these bag of chips, right? Let's say there's 2 or 3 servings and we see 200 calories. Oh, that's okay for a snack. And we just consumed a whole meal or more, 600 calories quickly, right? So it could be deceiving, right? So just be very careful. Or I should always look at the serving size and then down to the calories and then everything below. So percentage of daily value indicates amount in percent of nutrients contained in only 1 serving of the food based on the 2,000 calorie diet. So keep in mind that the calories will always vary between each person. Of course, everybody will require a certain amount of calories to help maintain their weight. So of course, the daily value will change, right? But this is based off of a normal 2,000 calorie diet. So what do we want to be careful with? What should we be looking out for? We should be very careful with the added sugars, sodium, and trans fats. And even saturated fats as well. So we think about so by law, the manufacturers have to list saturated and trans fats on their food label. Because these fats, of course, we talked about it earlier, they can increase cholesterol levels and cause issues, health issues. Now, added sugars. So we're going to look at a food label, total carbohydrates, we see dietary fiber, and we see sugars. Now, by law, if there's added sugars in the form of maybe like actual table sugar or honey, right, then they have to list how much is added. So be very careful. Let's say it's a can of fruit, right? It's a can of fruit. We see a large amount of carbohydrates. Well, fruit is carbs. So we should look at a fiber. We should have at least a few grams of fiber in there to help, of course, increase that good nutrient that we need. And then there shouldn't be any added sugars, right? So we have like a big frozen bag of fruit. There should be no added sugars. Some manufacturers will add it in there to increase the flavor of something, increase the flavor of the fruit, increase the flavor of their donut. So you want to be very careful. So what's an okay amount? Maybe like a few grams, 2 or 3 grams. If you can get it to 0, that'll be the best, but we shouldn't have a lot of added sugars. There's a lot of added sugars in yogurts, like in the yolk plates, even in the Greek yogurts that have a lot of patients like, this is a good product, and it may be low calorie, but it's just full of sugar. So you want to be very, very careful. So when we look at, so this kind of gives you the idea, of course, with the added sugars, syrups, right, that they add into the beverages or to certain foods. So 1 teaspoon of sugar equals about 4 grams of added or naturally occurring sugar. So other sugars occur naturally in foods like milk, fruit, and some vegetables, and these aren't considered added sugars. So you're going to see some carbohydrates in your milk because milk, lactose is your milk sugar. So the concern is going to be the added ones. So normally they're not going to add sugar to milk typically, unless it's like a chocolate milk or like a strawberry flavored milk, right? But normal, regular 1% won't have any added sugars, of course. So those are quite different than, of course, the manufacturer adding them into like a pastry. So, so I'm going to talk to you about these little questions. I had a couple of questions in case maybe one of the administrators, like the from SEC, wants to maybe answer them. Y'all can answer them. So can somebody guess which food has added sugar according to the ingredient list? So is it A, ingredients like culturized, pasteurized grade A non-fat milk, whey protein concentrate, pectin? Is it cultured grade A reduced fat milk, apples, high fructose corn syrup, cinnamon, nutmeg, natural flavors, pectin? Does anybody want to answer?
I'm going to guess all of them.
A does not have any added sugar, but B does. So B here, and it's very tricky. It's very tricky. So high fructose corn syrup is the added sugar. So I could be deceived. You're like, well, it doesn't say sugar there. So there's a lot of sugars that are in disguise, especially that high fructose corn syrup. That one's pretty bad. And so we want to be real careful. So of course, the better food will be one that doesn't have anything added. So physical activity and diet importance regarding weight. Of course, we think about the recommendation of exercise. We should try to aim for at least about a good maybe 90 minutes a day of activity, depending on the age, right? So 30 minutes of walking, jogging, physical, weight training, whatever it is, help maintain or help with your blood pressure, right? Help increase energy levels, help reduce cholesterol, help reduce the weight, right? So kiddos typically, in the adolescents, they should do about a good hour of activity a day. So we should focus on limiting screen time for the kids. We should focus on having them move, not necessarily running for a whole hour, as long as they're moving, as long as they're getting out there, or they're jumping on trampoline, or they're dancing for a good hour, or put them to do some yard work or something, as long as they're moving, not necessarily really rigorous activity. So another little question, can someone guess how much weekly physical activity should kids age 18 and younger do for substantial health benefits? Is it A, 2 hours and 30 minutes of moderate activity, 30 minutes 5 times a week? Or is it 1 hour of moderate vigorous intensity activity a day, or either A or B? So this is 18 and younger.
So we have a lot of people answering B. A few are answering A. Maybe they're switching now to A.
No, yeah, B. Yeah, B is the answer. That's wonderful. Yeah. So 1 hour of modern or vigorous intense activity a day. But that can sound like quite a bit. I have a lot of kiddos that I see, and when I give them that idea of an hour a day, they're like, not even I do an hour, but every age group, it requires a different amount of activity. So younger kiddos should be a lot more active than, of course, adults. So I can kind of mention trying to limit the screen time. I know this could be very hard. You want to make sure to try to get out there. A big deficiency in the US is low vitamin D, and that's from the sun. So we should try to get out there as much as we can. It is getting darker earlier. So right when we get home, maybe have a little snack, and then afterwards I'm gonna go out for a little walk, get some good vitamin D, get that good absorption of vitamin D. We should do about at least a good 15 minutes in the sun, almost a day. So we kind of talked about this a little bit already. So foods to increase on your plate method is trying to make your plate half of it is fruits and vegetables. I have a lot of patients that will choose, I have a good snack list that I give some patients, and I have quite a few on that list. Some of them are like little pastries, 150 calorie pastries. And whenever I see patients gravitating more towards those, I don't see as much weight loss. We think about fruit as being so much fiber. Let's say that snack is the same in calories. Say they do a fruit with maybe some nuts or a little 100-calorie pastry. The difference between the two is remarkable. You're going to stay fuller with the fibrous fruit and the nut combo opposed to the little 100-calorie little pastry. Of course, there is good nutrients in the little 100-calorie pastry, but there's the fiber is just so essential. So again, we should do a meal and then a little snack. And of course, that little snack, let's say we try to aim for a fruit with a little bit of nuts, or a fruit with a little bit of peanut butter, a fruit with a little string cheese. We want to try to get the 2 or 3 servings a day. So that could be a little hard sometimes. So we want to grab a little fruit. When in doubt, have some fruit laying around. Typically at eye level on the calendar, somewhere you can just grab that, somewhere hiding. That way we can just be a little bit more conscientious of what we're choosing for our snacks. So you want to make at least half of your grains whole grains. So let's say, we have a little bit of white rice here, a little bit of white pasta here and there. Half of the intake of for the week, for instance, we should try to make it whole. So, instead of doing the white rice, we want to try to go for the brown rice or the quinoa. Or couscous is great too. It's derived from wheat, from that whole grain. So those are good differences in rices that we can try to incorporate. Of course, instead of white pasta, trying to go for more of the whole wheat pasta, maybe even like a black bean pasta that has a lot more fiber, of course, to give you more fiber and more protein and helps you stay fuller versus the white simple sugars. And if we're doing, let's say we're doing whole milk or 2%, we should try to go down to like a 1% or fat-free. Almond is a good option, the unsweet version, right? Oat milk is a good option too. They have the pros and cons, but those are a little healthier, low-calorie options that give you still good, some good calcium still. There's a little visual of how our plate should look like. So half of it veggies, half of it fruits. Want to pick a variety of different vegetables, right? Trying to focus on a rainbow of colors. So not sticking to your same broccoli every day or your same carrots every day or a salad. Trying to get variety in your day. Every day should be a little different, at least if you could. Now that could be a little hard. Say you're a little pickier on what vegetables you like or even fruits you like, but we should try to pick these colors. So some red, orange, some pretty much a dark green every day. Some, in the legumes, the beans and the peas, your good starch, right? We're talking about this, the whole grains already, incorporating more whole grains. So we talked a little about, I did mention about what is a whole grain, what we should look out for on a label. Can somebody answer this question? Which bread is the highest in whole grains? Is it A, wheat flour, water, high-fructose corn syrup, molasses, wheat, or bran, or whole wheat flour, water, brown sugar?
I am going to guess. It's my turn to guess.
Okay. Yes.
B.
Yes. Yeah. So it's whole wheat flour. So this word right before the wheat is so important. So whole wheat flour. It can have high fructose corn syrup in there and added sugars, but the grain to be considered a whole grain, it needs to say whole wheat flour. So for your low-fat milk, does that make a difference? Yes. So we think about whole milk, very calorie dense, about 165 calories a cup versus a 2%. It's already reducing 40, 1%, 65, fat-free, reducing about 80 calories or 80, and nothing else changes but the fat. So I'm sure we've all heard of stay away from fat-free options. They're not healthy for us. Don't do fat-free. Don't do, fat-free cheese or whatever it is. So, and when it comes to milk, what's only that's changing is just the fat in there. Protein stays the same. There's no added sugars in there. The carbs will stay the same. The calcium stays the same, but you're reducing the calories. So can you guess, anybody, which is more nutrient dense? Is it fat-free and low-fat milk, whole milk, or are they all equally nutrient dense?
Okay, it's my turn to guess, and I will guess B.
What is it?
B, whole milk.
Okay, so we should be fat-free and low-fat milk. So whole milk does have a lot of all the fat in there, and of course the protein, the carbohydrates, but nutrient dense. So the nutrients will stay the same in the fat-free, low-fat milk. It's just going to be less of the calories. So a better source for us would be the fat-free and low-fat milk. So I haven't really touched base on the sodium. So if anybody wants to take a little guess on how much sodium is in a teaspoon of salt. So a teaspoon of salt is not that much, right? It's a pinch is about 1/4 of a teaspoon. So a pinch here, a pinch there, a pinch there, a pinch there. There is a whole teaspoon. Does anybody know how many milligrams of sodium is in a teaspoon of salt?
I am going to say B.
Yeah.
Around 2,000.
Yes, correct. So 2,300 milligrams of sodium. So that's how much we should have in one day. That's the amount. So if we're trying to watch the salt intake, let's say we have high blood pressure or any cardiovascular disease, right? High cholesterol, any risk factors of cardiovascular disease, like obesity, right? Overweight or high cholesterol, high blood pressure. We should limit to about 1,500 milligrams, 12 to 1,500 milligrams, just dependent on the severity of your past history. So that is small, right? Say 1,200 is about like half of a teaspoon of salt, and there's tons of sodium and salt in our condiments and our seasonings that we may use, especially in our traditional seasonings and the consomme and the caldo de pollo, all the good ones that we all kind of are accustomed to, right? If we're growing up in a Hispanic heritage, right? We think about all those additives that we add into our rice to make arroz con pollo, to make our traditional foods, our caldos, right? You want to be very careful. So it's quite a bit. I think I believe a little teaspoon, a pinch, which is about 1/4 of a teaspoon, has about 600 milligrams of sodium, and just one little pinch of the consomme and the caldo de pollo. So normally we don't measure a pinch. We don't just do a pinch. We don't really even pour. I have patients that say, I don't even pour, just like, I just kind of like estimate how much to see, like whatever like my mom used to do or my grandma used to do. And it's a lot. We have typically a lot of salt in our diets. So I see a lot of high blood pressure, see a lot of heart disease. And again, it's because these are really eye-opening portions. You think a little pinch won't really do too much harm. You think a little bit of salt on the food won't really do too much. It's very little, right? But it accounts to a lot, especially if let's say you eat out, there goes 2,000 milligrams, real easy. And it could be even from a salad. So I've kind of investigated some of our local restaurants, like Chili's. One of the salads there is about 2,000 milligrams of salt. It's amazing. The dressings will have a lot of salt. Anything in a package or in a bottle, in a can, will typically have a good amount of salt. So what's considered low sodium is under 300 milligrams. That's considered low. What's considered very low, about under 140. And that could be every little product that you add. Let's say a meal, let's say in my beans, I have about 140 milligrams. That's very low. right? And then I add something else, everything will add up. So just be very, very careful. So again, if there's no restrictions, there's hardly any health issues, 2,300 milligrams a day. If there is health issues, like anything heart related, kidney related, organ related, we want to be careful with the sodium, liver issues, right? It should be about 1,200 milligrams. Okay. So can somebody guess how much sodium is in 1 cup of this food? How much? Well, this is kind of easy. How much sodium is in 1 cup of this option?
I'll go ahead and take a guess. Is it C, 470 milligrams?
Yes. So we look at the serving size, right? First off, how much is going to be a cup, right? If I make this macaroni and cheese and I want to make sure that I am getting not too much salt in my meal, you want to look at the serving size. So 1 cup will give you all these values. So you see right there, it's 470 milligrams. So easy way to reduce sodium is, of course, check the labels, avoid adding salt completely, right? Eat fresh, frozen veggies are fine, right? So those can be okay if we look out for no salt added on the label. Even at that, what we can do is just rinse out the vegetable, right? And say it does have a little bit of salt, you can just run it over some water. And that should take away a lot of the added salt that they add to the liquid. For them to increase the freshness or to increase the taste of it. But so typically can is okay to do too. Again, just rinsing or looking at the label, no salt added. Fresh foods, fresh vegetables, frozen veggies are fine. You can always ask your waiter, can I have no salt on my food? Maybe the chef will do that. I know that could be a little difficult sometimes, right? But we'll be that customer to help stand up for the meal, because sometimes their hand can just slip and there goes a lot of sodium. And of course, using other seasonings opposed to the ones that already have a lot of sodium. So there's a lot of salt alternatives like Mrs. Dash out there that we could use instead of using like the traditional seasonings that we may be used to. Adding, of course, all the fresh herbs and spices will be ultimately the best, right, to help reduce the salt and to get that flavor that we all kind of want, right? Okay, so sugar sweetened beverages. So it's amazing how much we can drink to account to a meal. Amazing. So you want to really just have almost zero sweetened sugar beverages, right? So we should consume smaller portions of them if we really like something. So I really like some sweet tea. Okay, can you make sure maybe just do 1/4 of it sweet, the rest unsweet? That's going to help reduce a lot of calories, a lot of extra sugar in our beverage, and ultimately reduce almost a whole meal. I had a patient the other day, so she was consuming about 3 sodas a day. That was about 240 calories a can of soda, which is almost 700 or so calories a day, which I calculated that 7 days out of the week. It was almost 1.5 pounds of fat that she could just consume with just drinking those sugary beverages. Let's say we just do 1 little sugary beverage. That's still extra calories that won't give us too much nutrients, right? It won't give us energy. Maybe at first it'll give us a little energy, but simple sugar, right? Simple sugars will spike up your sugars, maybe your energy, and then you're going to plummet down. So we want to be very careful, just focusing on, of course, unsweetened coffee, unsweetened tea, tons of good water with lemon. Be careful with all those little sugar substitutes and diet drinks. They claim they have no calories, which they don't, but they use the substitutes in them. So a product cannot have that much flavor. It cannot taste that sweet and have no calories and it not be derived from a substitute. So typically you're going to see whether it's going to be Splenda, Sweet and Low in there, aspartame, sucralose, right? So there are going to be a lot of hidden sugar substitutes in them. So just be very careful. And I would say not to do any of those either. So that can actually affect how insulin works. substitutes is what studies have shown that it could affect how insulin works. It may not spike up your blood sugar right there and then if we're like diabetic or we're having issues with blood sugar, but it could affect how insulin works later. So it could provoke diabetes. It could provoke insulin resistance. So just remember, we should always choose a variety of different foods in moderation. Everything can pretty much fit on your fit in your plan. Carbohydrates included, right? The good healthy fats, everything can be included as long as we're just staying within portion and eating balance and just really ultimately listening to your body. Not necessarily eating out of because I have a time to eat. I only have a certain intermittent fasting type deal. We want to really focus on listening to your body. If you're hungry, fuel it. It needs to be fueled. Your fire pit, we want to make sure to continue to fuel our body every couple hours to keep that fire going. And of course, incorporating regular physical activity to help you just balance everything out, right? And that's the end. That's my presentation. I had a couple of questions, but I will leave the questions to you guys. Y'all can ask me questions if you guys like.
Thank you so much, Peggy.
Mm-hmm.
We have a lot of questions.
Okay, that's okay.
So I tried to group them a little bit. Let's start with Elena Chapa's question. Mm-hmm. She's asking if food labeled organic more nutritious.
Not necessarily. So it pretty much meaning organic, like the nutrients typically will not change, like protein amount, carbohydrates, the fat in them, the main macronutrients won't really change. Could it be healthier? Yes, in some aspects. Let's say, a chicken is just injected with all these hormones, right? And we don't want us to ingest those hormones. Well, of course, keeping away from that would be beneficial, right? But in the aspect of nutrients, not necessarily. It won't really change too much of the nutrients.
Okay, thank you. Eileen Munoz is asking, which is the most important food group?
So the majority of our food group should come from carbohydrates. So typically, in percentage-wise, this is based off of like a good balanced meal plan or a good balanced healthy diet. We should do about 50 to 65% should come from the macronutrient carbohydrates, and then it should be protein and then fat. So dependent, because there's different ways to balance out your macronutrient depending on the health history of a patient. So let's say we do 55% of it being carbohydrates and about 25% of it being protein, 20% of the fat. As long as we just focus on the 100%, the majority should be the carbohydrate. That's the first fuel source of energy.
Okay, good to know. So we had a few, and it was actually funny because I guess it tastes good and we don't want to let it go. So we had a few asking about what we consider junk food or fast foods. If we can eat it in smaller portions and not let it go, is that possible and you can still lose weight?
Yes, of course. So we think we all deserve like a donut or like a little slice of cake, especially the holidays are almost here. So we definitely deserve all that. It's just focusing on portion. Should we have like a regular piece of pie? Well, maybe not, maybe just like a little slice just to kind of taste it a little. Can we fit that into your plan? Yes. So our body recognizes anything in excess when it comes to weight gain, right? So we think about every single person has a different amount of calories to consume in order to maintain their weight. And typically that's going to be with a calculation and based off of height, weight, age, and activity. So you factor in those factors, right? And you gather this maintenance calorie count. Let's say I just want to maintain my weight. How can I factor in my pie, right? Well, a snack, let's say it's about 200 calories, 150 to 200 calories. let's say a piece of pie you're grabbing from somewhere is 400. You can just have half of it, right? So just have a little piece, and that won't put you too much over what you need. So you're still incorporated into your meal plan, and in total, you're still gonna maintain. I'd say if that's what you want to do. You want to just maintain weight. Obviously, if you want to lose weight, there's deficits, right? We have to be at a deficit in order to see that weight loss. But even at that, we can still incorporate it. And I have patients eating, pretty much anything they want, as long as they're just following the portions of the food, that we can still incorporate them.
Well, that's good to hear.
Yes, we all deserve that.
So with what you actually mentioned, we have a question from Michelle Garcia that says, what can I do if I struggle with gaining weight? And she says that she feels as if I eat enough, but can't seem to gain weight.
Okay, she wants to gain weight? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So when it comes to weight gain, again, we all have a certain amount of consume in order to maintain weight. So let's say I'll calculate that, right, based off of height, weight, age, activity, the same thing. Putting somebody at a deficit, right? We're going to increase. So typically, whatever we're eating as of right now, whatever she's eating as of right now, she can stay with the same thing. But what we can do is increase about 250 calories to 500 calories a day. So with that increase every single day, that will be about a half a pound to a pound of increase that we should see on the scale, or in other ways, right? Whether it's increase in muscle or whatever, increase of maybe a little fat, right? So typically that's the amount of calories we need to increase. And that could be, I have tons of patients that come in for weight gain as well. And it could be a little struggle. A lot of the times I see the portions aren't correct. Let's say they're limiting the protein. Let's say they're not eating enough protein. In their sandwich, they're only putting a slice or two of turkey or something, or they're not incorporating the healthy fat in the meal, not incorporating enough carbs, right? Or they're skipping meals. That happens quite a bit, is when, they skip meals or they skip snacks. Those are vital, times that we can incorporate good wholesome calories for her, or for a patient to help see the weight gain. So yes, we could typically stay with the same intake. Say I have the same regimen that what I'm doing. I'm just going to incorporate maybe like a quick way, maybe adding in like a wholesome shake in between the meals, adding in some good oats, some fruit, some Greek yogurt, some peanut butter, some nuts, some seeds in there, almond milk, 1% milk, and that 300, 400 calorie shake every day adding in will increase the weight per week.
Okay, that sounds good. So this brings me to a few questions related to the schedule.
Okay.
So we have some questions. For example, is it bad to eat too late or even too early of your day? And this is from Arturo Montemayor.
Is it bad to eat too late or too early?
Too early in the day or too late in the day?
Okay. Typically, like you want to really listen to your body. Let's say you wake up in the morning and you're not too hungry, right? Well, first off, if we do a little coffee or something with caffeine, that will suppress the appetite and that will delay the meal, right? So if that's happening, maybe take off the caffeine and really just let your body respond, right? Let your body talk to you. If it has a little bit of hunger, you want to respond to that. We shouldn't dismiss the hunger cue. So really listening to your body is really key. Should we wait too long, in the day before eating? I don't think so. I think we should really try to eat like within an hour or two, typically, right? To get your body going. You need to typically break the fast. Breakfast is breaking the fast. You've already fasted a while if you have ample sleep. That's another little issue, that sometimes we don't have enough sleep. So if you have ample sleep, 8 to 10 hours, we should typically eat, within an hour or two when waking and help breaking the fast. Whenever when you're fasting that long, we need that carbohydrate to fuel the brain and to get us going, to get us moving.
So this is interesting that you bring up, because we have a question from someone that says, but what happens if I'm not hungry until 1 p.m.? Should they still eat even though they don't feel hungry?
So whenever I hear patients not feeling hungry like all morning, typically it's because of caffeine intake, typically, right? And maybe eating late at night. So that happens quite a bit. Let's say we have a slow gut, right? Our food at night is, we fell asleep after we ate, we didn't go to the restroom. We were obviously at night, you're still metabolizing, everything is still working, but you wake up and you're a little constipated, you're a little backed up. You're not going to feel hungry until a few hours later. So typically if you're eating too late before bed, let's say you eat right before bed, I hear that quite often. Oh, my dinner is so large that I eat a larger dinner, and then in the morning I'm not hungry. Well, that makes sense because you ate too much at night. So in the morning, you're not going to wake up with a hunger. And I feel like that could set us up for the same regimen day. Like you're eating later and you're eating later in the day, so you eat more at night. Makes sense. So if we could try to like reverse it, eat more early and then have a snack, and then lunch and then a snack, and then typically you want to try to eat lighter before bed, because that's when you're less active, is right before bed. So do we need as much nutrients, enough calories at night than early? Well, no, because you're more active, typically, depending on your schedule, right? I have a lot of patients that work like graveyards. It's just so different, where everybody's just so different. So typically, if you have a early work day, we should try to fuel ourselves in the morning and then taper down with the portions at night. And with that regimen, you should get hungry, because then you'll be pretty much fasting. Let's say 7 o'clock at night is your dinner, and you wake up around 7 in the morning. That's 12 hours. You should be hungry unless you've eaten a too large meal or it's a little bit more fatty. Fats digest, it's the last food group to digest typically. So you're going to feel more satiated, more fuller. So I feel like, yes, we should try to eat early, and hopefully that's going to, pretty much kind of like move our schedule around to eat less at night, so you can again wake up with a good hunger, a good appetite.
Okay, that makes sense. You mentioned something that we had someone ask, and I've actually this has happened in my household, in which you have the graveyard shift. You work at night, but it happens that we have, not necessarily everyone in the household works at night, and during the day they're sleeping. So what do you recommend to your patients when they actually have this type of schedule, and they sometimes during the day are still awake, and they have a completely different work and sleep schedule?
Yeah. So what I do with each patient, I actually I understand exactly their shift. So I ask them, what time do you wake up? And so they'll say, let's say at 1 p.m. I had a patient earlier. He woke up at 1 p.m. So he'll eat about 2 p.m. Well, do you feel like having breakfast, or do you feel like having lunch at that time? And like, no, I feel like having a meal, because everybody else is eating a meal. It's lunchtime. Okay. So then so if you feel like you're having lunch, then we should have lunch when you wake up. But everybody's different. I hear patients, no, when I wake up in the middle of the day, 3 p.m. or whatever time it is, I want to have breakfast at the start of my day, right? So it's quite different for everybody. I've heard to a lot of different things from patients. So kind of depends on the patient, but obviously a little easier would be, to go with the flow, go with what your family is eating at that time, just for simplicity reasons. But if you're meal prepping and, doing all that good stuff, and then of course you'll have things ready, and it isn't really, of course, what they eat. You're going to have your meal, whether it's breakfast or something, right? And so, yeah, so depending on what time they wake up, I'll typically have their meal there. And then, of course, again, a couple hours later, snack. And then a few hours later, the dinner or whatever it is. And then all throughout the night that they're working, I'm putting fuel there. I'm putting a snack. I'm trying to plan out their dinner whenever their breaks are. If it's a big gap, because it's a long night, I'll try to put 2 snacks in between there. That way they can still have some good fuel every so often. And I try to taper down their meal before bed. Let's say it's in the morning. So they'll have a little small breakfast option before bed and everything fits into their plan. And typically they do really, really well. It doesn't matter what the time, what schedule they have. Yeah, trying to balance out the meal snack little ratio will typically help.
Balance definitely is key.
Yes.
So the last few questions is about certain either alternatives or specific, I guess, in part of that plan. One question is there a good salt alternative? And I found this interesting because in my household, one of our physician is actually suggesting no, because of high blood pressure, use the potassium chloride. Is these salt alternatives actually good, healthy, even if you don't have medical conditions?
Yes. So we should try to find a good alternative to salt, right? So there's like, for instance, like Mrs. Dash is like the big one there's no salt. They add potassium, right, to the product, which again, with potassium is a very necessary source, right, that we really, really do need. So adding a little bit dependent on the health issue, because I have patients with renal disease, which is kidney disease, and they have to limit their potassium. They have to limit their salt and their. So if I recommend Mrs. Dash that has, a good amount of potassium, then the potassium can go up because the kidneys aren't filtering everything out. So everybody's so different, right? So we have to be real careful on what to recommend. So that brings up like another point is sodium is sodium. So when it comes to like Himalayan salt, pink salt, all those alternatives, right, or all those different sources, it's not really an alternative because it still has sodium, right? So what like the biggest thing is that maybe they have a little bit extra vitamins and minerals, but Himalayan pink salt, right? But it will still be broken down. Your body will still recognize it the same way as sodium. Will you retain more water if you have too much salt? Well, you could, right? Could it increase your blood pressure? It could, yes, most definitely. And normally the granules are really large, right? So once they're broken, it accumulates. So that's where the milligrams will weigh a lot more, and it will still affect us kind of similarly. So we should really try to focus on trying to find alternatives, whether it's getting the flavor from different herbs and spices versus just something in a package or like in a little bottle. Using vegetables that gives good texture and good flavor to your rice instead of having the consomé that we like to add into some of our traditional rices, right? Adding cilantro, onion, and garlic. Adding in your veggies, chop up broccoli in your rice, right? Celery, carrots, of course, all the good herbs and spices. Typically, if it's one single ingredient in a little bottle, like for instance, onion powder, better versus onion salt. So obviously onion salt will have all the extra sodium. So onion powder versus onion salt, onion powder, garlic powder, right? If it's like basil, is it parsley? They typically won't have any extra salt in there. It's a one single ingredient. Looking on the back of the label, the ingredient should just say parsley, should just say basil. It shouldn't list all these other, different ingredients. Just try to stick with just solely just the herb, right? Or the spice.
That's interesting and funny that you say about the package, because in my culture, still Hispanic, we have these which give a lot of flavor. And these packages, I believe every time you add it to your meal, it's killing you little by little. But they're so delicious, these cubitos and seasoning. And I see my family cooking and they're adding, and we're like killing ourselves basically with these little packages of so much flavor.
Yeah.
But they're very high in sodium.
Yeah.
So this brings with the last two questions. Is dairy necessary when you are lactose intolerant? And we had another question related to that about almond milk, if it's better than regular milk, that maybe this could be an alternative for lactose intolerant patients.
So good question. So there's definitely other foods that have calcium, right? We don't necessarily need to have dairy, especially if you have an intolerance to or an allergy to milk, to dairy. So we think about like the green leafy veggies having a good amount of calcium. So like spinach, good kale, right? Have tons of good, and also good calcium. And also like orange juices will have calcium. We'll say calcium fortified. There's also breads that we can incorporate in that have good calcium as well. And mainly when it comes to like the different types of alternatives, like for instance, the almond milk. Almond milk, well, they have everything has its pros and cons, right? Including almond milk. Almond milk will have more healthy fat, which is because it's derived from almond. It'll still have good calcium though, but it doesn't have any protein. It has like 1 gram of protein. It's low carb, which is good, right? Which is okay. So we can count it as a fat serving. It's not going to be necessarily a carbohydrate because there's no lactose, there's no milk sugar. It's just a totally different, pretty much a different nutrient in a sense, right? It's going to be more categorized as a fat. So you're just counting it differently. So almond milk will be a great option because it still has like, but you're just counting it as a fat serving, incorporated into like your diet. There's quite a few other alternatives. Soy milk, I'm a little weary with the link of breast cancer in females, so I don't really recommend too much soy, but it has a lot of calcium, right? Now there's oat milk out there that will have okay amount of calcium, but it's more carb focused because of the oats. It has good fiber though, which is good. So again, pros and cons. Won't have any protein. Milk will have a little variety of everything. It has like, a little bit of fat, carbohydrates, and protein. It has about 8 grams a cup, which is pretty good. That's about an ounce of protein. So when it comes to calcium in the foods, the enriched breads will have good grains, the different grains, waffles, enriched waffles. Total raisin bran will have good calcium as well. Cornflakes as well. They have a good amount of calcium. Again, all the green leafies, the turnips, the collard greens, that will have good calcium as well.
And sorry to add this quick question, but what about the milk that says no lactose?
Yeah.
Is it a good alternative?
Yes, of course. Yes. So like the lactose free won't have lactose. I do hear patients sometimes they'll mention, I've tried it and I still feel symptoms. So they could be allergic to a different protein in the milk, right? So that could be it too. But yes, that's a great option. There's like a low fat, lactose free, like Lactate. There's Mutopia out there, and they'll have really similar, protein, carbs, everything will be similar, just taking out the lactose, which will, if you're lactose intolerant, will harm you.
Great to know. So the last question is, we wanted to, and we've done this with other speakers, a lot of our audience are students.
Okay.
So we wanted for you to give them a recommendation. If you were to, because students are very busy, a lot of them work as well. And sometimes they don't necessarily have time to cook a healthy meal or things like that.
Mm-hmm.
What are 2 easy dinners that you would recommend someone like a student that is very hectic, they need the energy to study and all of that, and they still work, but they don't have time to cook?
Yeah. And this is like a dinner, right? Like more like a dinner?
A dinner or any meal.
Okay. Yeah, I have some good options. I hear a lot. Biggest issue is breakfast. And guys, get breakfast a lot. I don't have time. I have to get there at 8 in the morning. I'm rushing out the door. I think smoothies are always like the best. So key for the smoothie, make sure to incorporate the food groups. Don't leave one out, right? So for instance, we could do, normally the oatmeal serving is 1/4 cup. So 1/4 cup raw, and we can have oatmeal raw, totally safe. Add that to your blender. We can add a cup of berries. So a cup is like a handful, just grab a cup of berries, or you can do a little small banana in there, or any fruit you have laying around. There's some really good little frozen fruit options, little bags at HEB. They're called blendables. Those are really good. You could so each bag has tons of different variety of different fruits, blends in there, and vegetables in there as well. And half a bag is a serving. So you can add your half a bag of the blendables, add about half a cup or so of the plain Greek yogurt because you don't want any added sugars, and maybe some almond milk, maybe some 1% lactate milk or something. And that would be a complete meal. That's a complete, more of like a complete breakfast. But that could be something similar for like a dinner. We could do maybe a little bit extra Greek yogurt though, instead of half a cup, about a whole cup of the Greek yogurt to give you more protein, and throw in a little bit of peanut butter in there. That would be really satisfying because it's your healthy fat, or maybe some nuts, some chia flax seeds in there too. That'll be really easy as well. Cinnamon, Greek yogurt, you need a little bit of honey or agave, just a little drizzle, nothing too much because it is sour, it's tart. So to help with that taste, a little bit is okay. Now we're able to control that serving. We don't have a flavored Greek yogurt that has all the added sugars that we don't want. We want to be able to control it. So by us buying the plain by itself, it won't taste good. And I won't torture you guys that way and tell you to have it by itself. So adding a little bit of the honey or the agave is okay to do. I mean, quick sandwiches are always really good for like a dinner option too. Maybe leftover chicken breasts from like the night before, a grilled chicken breast, a can of tuna, 2 slices of 100% whole wheat bread, loads of vegetables, some fruit, try to get a little balance in there. Let's say ground turkey, right? You can ground turkey, like a little picadillo. We can add cilantro, crushed tomatoes, onion, garlic, some paprika, chili powder, right? Some good onion, garlic powders in there, and do a little stir fry, or that takes maybe like 5-10 minutes to cook on the sartén, on the pan. And again, maybe pair that up with maybe some beans, and you can buy beans from a can. You don't have to waste time making them. I know that could be very, that takes a lot of time to cook beans. So canned beans, no salt added on the label. And maybe the little sealable bags from HEB, those are so easy with vegetables, or frozen bags. You can put them in the microwave and steam. And that's a whole little meal, like a little bowl, picadillo, veggies, some beans, some avocado on top. And you have a really good meal prep, but very fresh and homemade and quick.
Those are some good options. Well, thank you so much. I do want to remind everyone that Miss Peggy does have a nutrition consulting, and you can find that information in where you registered in Eventbrite. I also want to thank you for joining us. The biology department at South Texas College thanks you. And I want to remind everyone that you can actually register or actually follow us, our YouTube channel, so that you can keep up to date with our speakers. Our next speaker will be November 29th, so look out for our next invite. Thank you so much, and have a great